Hey there, I am back with another Free the Pip Friday where we open up some of the rarest decks out there. And for this one, we're going to be taking a look at Mercury Flower from Azoth. Azoth is a playing card collector out of China who wanted to produce his own deck of playing cards. But not just any deck, he wanted to make the most luxurious deck imaginable. So he went to USPCC and basically said, give me the works. He put into this deck pretty much every single upgraded feature that USPCC offered. And it's said that by the end of the day, this deck ended up being the most expensive deck in terms of production value that USPCC has ever made. Now, the deck was never intended to be for sale. There were about 1,000 of them made, but they were intended to be just a friends and family deck. Decks that were given to those closest to Azoth. Now, of course, a few of them have made their way to the secondary markets, and when they do, they're a highly sought after commodity. I've seen decks fetching anywhere from $500 up to even like $1,000. It's a very hard deck to get a hold of, and I'm really excited to get to check one out here. Now, I should say this is not my deck personally. This was loaned to me by a good friend, Ryan. I'll put his Instagram down in the description. I really appreciate him loaning me this deck so that I could check it out and share it with you guys. So let's get right into it and find out what Mercury Flower is all about. Starting with the tuck box. It's a multi-layer tuck box, boxes within boxes. And so you can see this is a little bit oversized here to begin with, but this is just the first layer. It's done on a matte black stock with holographic foil. You can maybe see some of that shimmering rainbow color in there. Beautiful look to it overall. Has this die cut element in the center that reveals the Mercury Flower inside. The vine work that surrounds it is really ornate, beautiful, symmetrical look to it, and that foil looks fantastic. The vines twist their way all the way around the tuck box on all sides, including on the bottom where you'll typically find the ad copy. I love that the ad copy, they kind of save the ad copy for further into the box, just to prevent those words from marring the rest of the design. The top here is sealed with this super-sized holographic foil seal that goes over the entire top of the box and has another depiction of the Mercury Flower with the leaves all around it. And as you open up the first layer, you pull it out here on the sides and it opens up with a little drawer on the outside. So this is just a sleeve and a drawer. Definitely a tight fit on this one, but once you get it out, you can see that die cut element and then the interior foiling with more rainbow foil on the inside. Beautiful outer sleeve. And then you get the nice thick inner drawer here, which of course itself also covered on all sides with holographic foil, more depiction of the Mercury Flower there in the center and then the repeated floral pattern throughout. So really nice first layer with that drawer and sleeve. And then we get to the next layer, the next tuck box, if you will. And of course, not the final one yet. But the second tuck box has similar design elements to it, all done in holographic foil against the matte black stock. That Mercury Flower, this is the same one that was peeking through in the opening of the outer sleeve. And then surrounded by a new style of leaves. These a little bit straighter lines, kind of more classic branches all the way around. Personally, I like this one a little bit better. I like how this one looks. No seal on this one, but the box does open up a little bit differently. Opens up from the side here, more details on the flap, and reveals a larger than life Mercury Flower inside. Another beautiful hollow foil depiction. Everything on here done with that really shiny foil. And then the final tuck box is hidden inside. So it slides out right here. Love how that's integrated right into the design. And as you slide it out, you get a final look at the side opening tuck box. Beautiful look to it. And then we finally get to the final tuck box inside. And here it is. Beautiful depiction, again, that black cardstock, and then that holographic foil forming the large central element here that kind of wraps around both sides with the Mercury Flower and then the vines on the left and on the right. Bottom has our first peek at any sort of words or ad copy on this one. Just says designed in China, basically in Chinese characters. And then on the other side here, we get what is the formal name of the deck, basically the full name of it. And I don't know the full translation in the sentence, but these are characters that translate to copper, quench, the number 8, the sepals of a flower, basically the enclosing bud, shining, Mercury, and flower. So really nice little touch there with the Chinese characters. And then the top, the shorter name, just shining Mercury flower. On the flaps here, yet another depiction, of course, of another Mercury flower. More vines and leaves on the inner flaps, and some really nice interior printing, of course, done yet again in that holographic foil. This one, especially with that flower there, has a little bit more of a Polynesian feel. And then if you peek all the way to the bottom there, you just make out on the interior of the tuck box the actual ad copy, where it finally mentions that these are printed by the USPCC. So do get a little bit of ad copy, but I love that it's buried inside of the deck just to kind of keep the smooth aesthetic going all the way through. And we finally reached the cards. Now, if you had these in hands, this is something I can't show you on video, but you would notice as you go through the layers, a growing scent. There's actually a perfume that's added to these. And so as you open up the layers, that smell just gets stronger and stronger as you go through. So at this point, if you were here in the room with me, you would actually be able to smell that perfume smell, that kind of woody smell off of the cards. It's a really cool extra little luxury touch, a little bit gimmicky, but kind of a fun addition. But let's take a look at the cards themselves. And you may have noticed right off the bat that they are gilded and, of course, holographic gilding. That rainbow shine, I love the stripy pattern that's done on these. Just a really cool look, and of course, very fitting with the rest of the theme. And the card backs are metallic as well. So this one isn't holofoil, instead with a silver hot foil on these. The silver hot foil has some good and bad properties to it. Hot foil compared to cold foiling is much shinier, so you get a nice mirrory look to it, and you can even see my fingers sort of reflecting in there. Really cool shiny look to it overall, but you do lose a little bit of detail in some of the cards, and I'll show you what I mean as I get deeper into the deck. It's not too bad on this design. I think the design still looks beautiful. The flower in the center, and then the flowers, the vines, and the leaves twisting their way out to form a really beautiful design overall. That foil, just everything looks really great against that black card back, and again, very fitting with the rest of the theme. So there's your back design, and then we flip to the faces of the cards. In the faces, finally we get away from foil, and now we go to just metallic inks. So the faces of the cards don't have any foil on them, and instead have the silver metallics as the dominant color. So black card back, silver metallic ink. And the two jokers are nearly identical. You get the flower in the center, and then the joker almost written like out of the leaves there. The vines coming top and bottom. The only difference between these two is obviously this joker, the flower is slightly larger than the other one. So a little bit of a size difference. Not sure why they weren't identical. I guess it sort of gives you a way to tell the two apart. But I personally would have preferred them kept identical myself. But nice design to those. So two jokers, and then we get to the extra cards. So the first one is a quasi double backer. I say quasi because one side, of course, is done in the foil, the other side in just metallic inks. And by the way, I mentioned this is where you can see a little bit of the distinction in the hot foil, where it kind of muddies up the design just a tiny bit. If you compare here to the cleanliness and the crispness of the metallic inks, the foil loses just a tiny bit of detail, the little shadows of the flower and things like that. Nothing too crazy, but there is a little bit lost with the foil, just kind of a byproduct of the holo foil. So there's your double backer. And then this weird card, I still don't know what this is all about. Just has some numbers written on it, seemingly random numbers. Not sure if it's a serial number, some number that's special to Azoth in some way, but I don't know, maybe you could use it in a magic trick or something like that. And then we get into the main deck, and of course we're going to start out by looking at the 4 aces. So all 4 aces impressively done with huge pips in the center. I love the look of these. They have the flower yet again in the middle. Definitely has kind of a stained glass vibe to everything, with those shards and different shapes all the way through, just forming a beautiful design and incorporated right into that classically shaped pip in the center. Have nice bordering on these. You have the sort of filigree on the 2 corners to give extra little bit of border to this. And then the pip in the index, the pip there in the corner, beautiful, ornate, slightly different than the main spade pip, but really, really nicely drawn. And then you have the Chinese symbol for 1 there in the corner. So it has Chinese indexes instead of the classic English one. So this is just a 1 in the corner. The other 3 aces feature the classic shapes to the pips, but of course incorporating that same flower design in the middle to form out the 4 aces of the deck. And of course you'll notice no differences in the color, whether black or red, they're all silver in this deck. So just kind of keeping with that clean theme all the way throughout. Number cards are also, of course, custom in this one. They feature the Nice large pips, very ornate feel to them, just like everything else in this deck. Love the design work on these. Pretty classic layout, and of course the increasing Chinese count of numbers there in the corner as we run through all the cards. Now I will say, with that really big and ornate border, it definitely starts to feel a little bit crowded as you get to some of the larger numbers, but nothing that's too crazy. Nothing that keeps it from being a fairly usable deck, particularly if you can read Chinese characters. So there's your diamonds. There's my favorite of them. I love how that club pip turned out personally. That's my favorite of the 4 suits. And then into the hearts. This is definitely the one that looks most like a stained glass window to me. And then finally, we get to the court cards. And the court cards are definitely not standard, but you can clearly see where they're inspired by your classic bicycle courts. A lot of familiar elements, things like the hair or what they're holding in their hands, the weapons or the flowers. Definitely has a familiar vibe to it, but completely redrawn in those silver metallic inks. The clothing kind of has little elements that bring in the floral patterns that we've seen throughout the rest of the deck. And the faces are all changed out. They're all kind of blanked out in full silver, and they're all wearing blindfolds with that slight floral pattern on them. Really cool look to them. I like how they turned out personally. Again, that border kind of helps everything feel a little bit cramped and crowded to me. So maybe a little bit more space would have helped a little bit, especially with how chaotic the clothing is and all the different patterning in there. So while it feels a little bit busy and crowded, I think it's still a nice look to the courts overall. So as you go through all of these, you'll see, like I said before, familiar elements, but some nice custom changes to make this deck feel unique. And then finally, the courts of the hearts, finishing out with that Suicidal King. And that is it. That is Mercury Flower in all of its glory. Now, it is actually an impressively well-handling deck. Handles really nicely, smoothly, fans everything. Sometimes with the hot foil, the gilding, these are all things that can kind of detract from the handling of the deck, but this does not suffer from it one bit. So if you wanted to use this for cardistry or anything, this would be a beautiful handling deck. Nice thin crushed stock and really smooth finish to it overall. So what do we think of the deck overall? I think it's an impressive deck. The tuck box in particular, that multi-layer tuck, 4 different pieces across 3 different layers. It has so much of a luxurious feel to it. So in that regard, incredibly impressive. Now, do I think it's worth the $5,000, $6,000, $8,000 price tag that people are asking for it? There's no way I can say it's worth that. I mean, that's an insane amount of money. So, if I could get a hold of it for a lower price, I would be glad to get one. And if you ever get a chance to get one of these in your hands, it is absolutely worth playing around with, worth checking out. It is a beautiful achievement overall. Is it worth what people are charging? Of course not. It's an insane amount. So hopefully you can get your hand on one of these, but even if you can't, hopefully you enjoyed getting a chance to check them out here on the video. So that's it for this one. Hope you enjoyed. Make sure to subscribe for more deck reviews, more unboxings, and of course, more Free the Pip Friday. That's it for now, and I'll see you for the next one.